New inflation data just out, giving us another snapshot of how prices are trending, what direction they're headed for Americans. CNN's Matt Egan is with me now. Tell me what's coming in.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Kate, the snapshot is not a pretty one because we're back to 3% inflation in the United States.
All right, folks, we've got some breaking economic news, and unfortunately, it's not the good kind. Trumpflation is once again showing up across the economy. Donald Trump promised that if he were elected, he'd end inflation on day one. But instead, as we've seen, largely because of his costly tariff policies, prices have continued to rise throughout his time in office. That's a big reason why his economic approval numbers are struggling. And now, we've got yet another rough economic report under Trump's leadership. Before we break it all down, if you appreciate independent coverage like this and want to help the channel grow, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell before you go. All right, friends. We're going to wrap up the rest of this CNN economic segment, dive into some reporting, and then finish with a Fox Business journalist nervously questioning a Trump administration official about these numbers, and that official trying to spin the situation. Let's take a listen.
First time since January. So these new numbers out show that prices were up by 0.3% between August and September. That's actually slightly better than expected. Okay. However, the annual inflation rate moved in the wrong direction from 2.9% to 3%. And as I mentioned, that is a new 8-month high for inflation. And when you look at the trend, what's important to remember is that inflation was going in the right direction, right? Earlier this year, back in April, inflation went down to 2.3%. That's the dip in the middle of that chart. So that goes back to September, back when then candidate Trump was on the campaign trail saying inflation was out of control. But you can see clearly we're in a worse spot now than we were last fall, when inflation was maybe the biggest issue, certainly the biggest economic issue on the minds of voters.
And once again, what Donald Trump and his supporters are trying to do is shift the blame, calling it Biden's inflation. But that's just not true. Trump has been in charge of the economy for the last 9 months, and the data shows prices dipped briefly under his watch before shooting right back up. This is his economy and his responsibility. Democrats should be out there every single day, standing in front of cameras and microphones, making it clear that these rising prices are the direct result of Trump's own policies. He promised to end inflation on day one, but instead, it's climbing higher than ever, hitting the wallets of working families across the country. Let's keep going.
So that's pretty telling. And when we dig into the categories to try to understand the why here, okay, gasoline prices did go up between August and September, right? So during the month of September, prices were up. In fact, gas prices increased by about 8% on a monthly basis. That was the biggest monthly increase in about 2 years.
Let's pause for just a moment and think about this. How many times have we seen Donald Trump say that gas prices are plummeting, that they're dropping like a rock because of him? He's claimed over and over again that he unleashed American energy and that gas would soon be below $2 a gallon. But in reality, the opposite is happening. Under Trump's leadership, gas prices are rising, not falling. That's the truth. And those facts don't speak for themselves unless we make them heard. Democratic leaders and their allies need to be clear and consistent. Gas prices are going up. It's Trump's responsibility, and the way to hold him accountable is at the ballot box by voting for Democrats in the next election.
Not just about gas prices, which are, they're still relatively low, even if they went up.
They're
also, this is about the grocery store, which is another pain point for consumers, and which is also being driven in part by tariffs, because we did see significant increases for a number of different items. Canned vegetables, ham, other items of food went up. But then there's other tariff exposed items that have gotten more expensive. For example, apparel. Apparel went up by almost 1% on a monthly basis.
They warned this was coming. They warned that it was coming in the fall.
Because so much of the clothes they're imported, so they are exposed to those tariffs.
Let's pause here again, because I want to be absolutely clear. Some people might argue that all of this is just coincidence, that none of it is Donald Trump's fault. But here's the thing, that wasn't the standard when Democrats were in power. Under President Biden, Trump, MAGA Republicans, and much of the right, even parts of the political center, claimed that if something happened on Biden's watch, it was automatically his responsibility. So if that's the rule they want to live by, then we're applying that same rule to Trump. What's fair for one side has to be fair for the other. But beyond that, it's not just about fairness, it's about facts. There is a direct link between Trump's economic policies, specifically his tariffs, and the rising costs we're seeing now. These were his decisions, choices made against the advice of respected economists, including conservatives. And they've driven prices higher. So, yes, this is Trump's responsibility, no matter how you look at it. And remember, facts don't speak for themselves in today's distorted media landscape. We have to connect the dots and make the case clearly. Let's keep going.
Apparel jumping by almost 4% on a monthly basis. And then two other things that are exposed to tariffs that I'll just call out. Appliances, they went up significantly by about 2%. And also some furniture increased significantly. And we know that furniture just got tariffed by the president. So look, you put it all together, inflation is not as bad as some had feared it could be, right?
Yep.
And it's certainly not the nightmare of 3.5 years ago, okay? But at the same time, as you know, inflation, it's cumulative. There's a snowballing effect. So the fact that we're getting uncomfortably high inflation right now, after years of very historically high inflation, that's why this is so painful. And look, it's contributing to the two-speed economy, right? People at the top who have money in the market, they own their homes, they're doing okay. They could absorb these price increases, but a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck, not so much, right? They're really the ones who are hurt here. So this is contributing to that K-shaped economy.
Yeah, this is not.
Exactly. I mean, what more can you even say at this point? It's clear that these policies are directly hurting American workers, American families, and the broader middle and working classes. It's the complete opposite of what Donald Trump promised during his campaign. Now, let's take a closer look at some additional data. Analysts have started crunching the numbers, not just in terms of percentages, but in actual dollars. What do Trump's tariffs mean for everyday Americans? How does this inflation show up in real-world costs? At the grocery store, the gas pump, or on your monthly bills? Let's break that down.
We told you last week how the tariffs are impacting housing developers, and now NBC4's Gracie Collins is looking into how they're having a ripple effect on the housing market. Gracie, what did you learn?
Jared and Anna, the housing expert I spoke with, says people are going to start seeing these impacts right away, especially when looking at the price of a home.
You might only be feeling about half of what that tax ultimately will be in another 6 months or a year or so, but you're going to begin feeling these today.
Uncertainty looming over the housing market.
We really don't know because we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know how it's going to change. These are taxes that have evolved pretty significantly over time.
Carly Booz with the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio says these tariffs will likely result in a $9,000 increase in the sale price of a home, or about $80 more a month on a mortgage.
So if you're buying a home, the cost of this tariff is essentially the same as a telephone plan or maybe a kid's swimming lesson. It's not negligible.
The Trump administration says these added tariffs to lumber, upholstered furniture, cabinets, and more are meant to protect American workers and boost the U.S. economy. But Booz says it's going to put more pressure on the consumer.
There are a lot of families in Central Ohio where that's going to be a make it or break it point. It's not whether to accept those additional costs, but an acknowledgement that I can't, that officially puts me out of budget range.
With the materials to build housing jumping in price, local housing developers say we may see a decline in builds, something Central Ohio is already behind on.
We need to be building almost 20,000 homes every year just to lock in our housing problem the way it is today without letting it get worse. Even in our good years, we're only doing about half of that. So any speed bump in the road that is slowing us down from being able to get to that ultimate end zone, it is going to be something that we feel.
According to an article from NBC News, 55% of the cost of tariffs are being pushed onto U.S. consumers.
This is Donald Trump's doing. These are his tariffs, his policies, and the direct result is what we're now calling Trumpflation. It's entirely predictable and completely avoidable. But instead of changing course, he's doubling down, even as he recklessly undermines crucial trade negotiations with one of America's closest economic partners, Canada. As promised, we're going to wrap up with a clip of a noticeably uneasy Fox Business host, Stuart Varney, pressing a Trump administration official on the issue of inflation. And the tone-deaf response you're about to hear is honestly staggering.
Kevin, the consumer price inflation report came out today. Prices up exactly 3% over the last 12 months. You happy with that?
Yeah, it was a really good report for a number of reasons.
This is not good for the pocketbooks of working Americans. It's hitting families where it hurts. These rising costs are the direct result of policies Trump put in place. And it's fair to call this a political disaster. Democrats and their allies should make this an issue every single day. Explain how these policies are affecting people's budgets and push for accountability at the ballot box in 2026. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, I will see you soon.